Alright guys, this is going to be another long video. This is going to be for Assassin's Creed. Oh no, I can't talk right now. For all the issues going on behind the scenes, and then there was another video, so I'm going to be watching two different videos by, once again, Idiomon TV. Once again, I pray I'm saying this right. But this guy, I give this guy credit, putting out a lot of videos about a lot of sources that have been coming to him talking about the issues within Ubisoft and the issues of Assassin's Creed, but let's get into it.
It's Endymion, and recently I've been talking to some sources about Assassin's Creed Shadows behind the scenes and a lot of things that are happening at Ubisoft and even other game studios as well. And the things that I've been getting told are pretty damning. So with their consent, I've been able to make this video and present you the various things that they've told me. I vetted these sources, and they have indeed worked with Ubisoft for many years, as well as other game studios as well. They've even told me things about games that aren't released yet that I actually can't even say, because I think if I do that, assassins from other studios will probably barrel roll through my window and then take me out John Wick style. So anyways, I will spend this video explaining the absolute state of Assassin's Creed Shadows, Star Wars Outlaws apparently being referred to as Red Dead Star Wars internally, and more. And there's other stuff that you just gotta hear because a lot of this is just absolutely insane. So in my previous video, I explained that Paul Tassi of Forbes said in his article about the Ubisoft implosion that those extra months have been given to possibly reduce or even completely remove Yasuke from Assassin's Creed Shadows. My source told me, however, that they heard February 2025 is simply a placeholder release date as of now. Apparently, this is because Ubisoft is scrambling and they need certain key talent in order to assist on a Q2 game release. Which, if you don't know what that means, there's 4 quarters to a calendar year, so Q2 means Ubisoft has something that they think will hit that is coming out later in the year that they need help on. So because talent at the studio is working to make that future release come out more smoothly, Shadows is not being given the extra hands it kinda needs right now, so like I said, the release date may actually be pushed back even further. I was also told when they originally saw the game there was indeed a male Japanese protagonist with their own finalized art and even animations. They don't know if this character will be reintroduced in order to replace Yasuke, but they are skeptical that Ubisoft will actually remove Yasuke altogether due to the whole political, backlash they'll get from journalists and so on. They did say that the game's first act is heavily story-driven until it eventually opens up to your more traditional open-world Ubisoft experience, and that the big hurdle there, if they were to remove Yasuke, would be to practically change almost everything about Act 1, so to speak, if they were to remove the character entirely. So
Jeez.
could they remove Yasuke with this already done but thrown aside Japanese character? It's a big maybe, but they said that they weren't sure of it yet. They also told me they heard rumblings that Sweet Baby Inc. may have had a hand in Shadows, but they can't confirm that 100% yet, so take that allegation with a huge, big, fat shot of skepticism right now. Okay?
It wouldn't shock me if they
Like
were.
I was saying, the game did first include a male Japanese main character, but they were swapped sometime during 2020, according to my source, for Yasuke instead. So this is where stuff gets really weird and pandering, but I asked them what influenced Ubisoft to make the change that they did from the original Japanese male character to now Yasuke. They said that Ubisoft was heavily influenced by the socio-political events of the time, with stuff like, and no I'm not kidding, George Floyd dying, the riots, and Black Lives Matter
Jesus
exploding
Christ,
in
man.
support. So don't shoot the messenger here.
No, but that is a bullshit reason. I'm sorry. It's bullshit. That's bullshit. You got people in Japan that's mad, and you decided to go another route because of what's going on here in America and what happened here in America. And that's your excuse, Ubisoft. Oh my god, y'all are a bunch of idiots.
But this is what I was told by this source, but Ubisoft may have opted to include Yasuke in order to pander to identity politics because of Black Lives Matter. I know, it's a hell of a statement. Again, they said they cannot confirm 100%, but they did say that they have seen the original Japanese hero character and that they were actually mortified when they saw Yasuke for the first time in the game. Apparently, one of the videos that Ubisoft was showing of Yasuke originally, and no, I'm not kidding you, was Yasuke destroying a grocery store property with his weapons in order to show the game's physics engine. But the
Wow.
source said that they couldn't believe how tone-deaf Ubisoft was, being considering they were literally showing a black guy in a foreign country destroying property. This lack of knowing what to do with shadows was all over the game, and like I said, Yasuke was inserted for identity political reasons.
Yep, he
The
was.
source also said that Ubisoft was horrified by the response to Yasuke from the fandom, and they actually thought including him would be a really big selling point for the game. They apparently believed by inserting Yasuke that they could garner and pander to the modern audience, which is cringe.
No,
But
because there's
yes,
no
the
audience that
studios
wanted
are
him.
still trying to pander
Assassin's
to
Creed
these
fans did
groups,
not want
but like I've
this.
said so many times, they literally do not exist. Another very damning allegation I was told by sources was that compared to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that Shadows has only about 7% the pre-order numbers of Valhalla during the same time period. Yes, you heard that right, guys. 7% of Valhalla. So that other report where Stuttering Craig, a side-scroller, said Shadows only had about 800 physical pre-orders over about 900 web stores in America, he is telling the truth, my friends. So it's pretty evident that Ubisoft delayed the game not only due to backlash, but because they were getting next to nothing pre-order-wise when compared to Valhalla, or even Mirage even. I don't have exact concrete numbers on Valhalla's pre-orders prior to launch, however, remember that Valhalla is Ubisoft's second most profitable game of all time, and it's only beaten by Rainbow Six Siege. So Shadows currently, as of the making of this video, or like a month ago I guess, has about 7% of that, if you can believe it. I was also told that Ubisoft has made Shadows the most microtransaction-filled experience from launch compared to any other previous title that they have ever released in the franchise. So we're talking loads of DLC armor, weapons, mounts, trinkets, etc. for both characters, all for premium costs. Which of course is nonsense because the game is full price at launch, but they actually thought, according to my source, that Shadows would be doing better than Valhalla. And no, I am not kidding. Besides the abysmal pre-orders, the thing that actually spooked Ubisoft more than anything else was how Japan reacted to the one-legged Torii Gate figurine. Remember that that's the merchandise?
Yeah, and I remember seeing that. And the thing of it is, guys, I'm going to let you guys know, I have been an Assassin's Creed fan for years. I played the first one. It was alright. Played the second one. Fell in love with the franchise even more. Loved them all. Rogue was alright. Unity was shit, in my opinion. Origins was okay. Odyssey was shit. Valhalla was okay, and then you had, of course, the one Basim, which I did not like that character. I did not like the story of Basim. I did not like Mirage that much at all. I barely finished the game because I was that bored of it. But again, Assassin's Creed's been going up and down for so many years, but this has really just thrown Assassin's Creed fans more to the wolves of basically Ubisoft don't care. That's basically what it is they don't care. They want to pander to idiots rather than listen to people that's buying their product.
Product where Yasuke and Naoe are standing on a symbol of Nagasaki getting the atom bomb dropped on them, yet these characters take place in Japan, well, before that even happens. And this culturally devastating piece that proved that Ubisoft was not adequate enough to make the game, or really know anything about the time period, it led to the higher-ups admitting defeat and demanding that the game get a cultural do-over, if you will. They wanted things to be more authentic because the one-legged Torii Gate incident was so embarrassing and baffling that they didn't want anything else like that to ever happen again in their history. So, that's another big reason for you. As of now, from what I've been told, February 2025 is being chosen because Ubisoft believes there will be a AAA gaming drought around that time period. So they're hoping that they can capitalize by releasing Shadows then instead of November 15th, which was its original release date. Even though there are plenty of games coming around that time, like Monster Hunter Wilds will release in that same period, which makes me believe that Ubisoft will indeed push the game even further back than intended. One of the things for sure getting removed from Shadows, according to my sources, is indeed the rap hip-hop music for Yasuke. Apparently, Ubisoft brought out a questionnaire, and they were unanimously told that the rap music was tonally wrong and completely unneeded, and that it was actually offensive that Ubisoft believed Yasuke needed a hip-hop battle theme in a game that was set well before such music existed, and it was only implemented because Yasuke was black, so that's going to be gone for sure. They're also removing dialogue from the game that, according to my source, told me that it would actually enrage players if they heard it. I wasn't given concrete examples of what kind of dialogue, but the source assumed it may have been Yasuke saying some sort of socio-political pandering nonsense about how he was sold by white men or
Oh,
something,
I
and
knew
that
that
he
was
hates
probably gonna
white
be
men
brought
and
up.
white supremacy must be abolished and such. They're also removing this because, of course, if that were in the game, it would absolutely be highlighted and used to detract even more people from supporting the game in the future. Also during development, one of the hardest things to implement for Ubisoft apparently was the parry system, according to sources. And allegedly, Shadows was also going to be the last game in the series that would feature the RPG-like gameplay mechanics that started in Origins. And that future releases would instead go back to what the series was most known for, which was more
Yeah,
of an action-adventure style.
exactly.
Just
That's what we
look at
want.
Unity or, Assassin's Creed 2, that kind of thing instead.
Yeah.
With stuff like the more timed combat of the original and such, and apparently the RPG stuff is very difficult to implement,
Yeah, the
and
RPG's getting
Ubisoft wants
boring.
to lessen the load, as they say, in future games. I was also told that the next Assassin's Creed, which is called Hexe or Hex, which is set during the Salem witch trials, was being internally claimed, and get this, to be the gayest Assassin's Creed yet. I'm told that it only has a single female protagonist, and it's also the most fantastical Assassin's Creed yet. There will be lots of mysticism, and will also have, as they said, very striking visuals. I don't know if that means an entirely different art style or anything, but this is what I was told. It will still be an open world action game like the other ones, but from what I've been told, it is the biggest departure yet for the series. My sources claim that Hex or Hexy, whatever it's called, is very, very female power oriented. We are talking lots of lesbian relationships and female characters. It has
Gosh,
witch
man.
covens and apparently very little masculine presence within the game. Although my sources told me that they believe that the game will be scaled down in the future and then made into a Liberation-esque game instead of a mainline title. If you know the one that had, like the smaller games. Anyway, let's keep going.
Liberation was not a bad game. It wasn't. Okay? But putting that in there when no one asked for it, nobody wants it. Guys, there are characters that have relationships, whether it be male, female, whatever, that was stupid to begin with. Like the one Evie that had a relationship with what's his name in Syndicate. That was a dumbass character. And yet he didn't do nothing. He was a waste of space. And in Origins, those were good characters. I wasn't a fan of the gameplay. Still was not a fan of the gameplay. If they're wanting to get rid of the RPG, cool. But if they're wanting to go with all this other crap that people are not asking for, then don't do it. Why? Because you're pandering to people that don't know what the hell they are from morning to nighttime. They could change it on a whim. Or oh, we gotta have this in here, we gotta have this in here. Yeah, you know the reason why you took that stuff out for Yasuke saying that? You wanna know why? Because you would lose your core audience in a heartbeat if you put that shit in there. You would. Because not only that, you've disrespected your core audience, the Japanese community, and you've disrespected other communities without even realizing it, Ubisoft. Y'all are a bunch of fucking sellouts.
Because Ubisoft does not have confidence that Hex will sell well at all, and this too was put into development when a lot of these pandering games were first being pitched or made. Internally, as I was being told, the developers behind Hex joked that the game will indeed piss off the fan base, but they wanted to make it anyway. I assume because the game is devoid of male characters, besides of course the ones you probably kill or hunt, and like I said, it's going to have borderline magic at this point in the Assassin's Creed series, so expect lots of weird Isu gobbledygook, I guess, as well, but that's what I was told about Hex so far. They also told me that there's not a chance in hell that Ubisoft doesn't go bankrupt, and that Ubisoft's backup plan, if they were to get a bailout, or if things were to turn around so that they could actually, exist in the future and not just immediately cease all operations, would be to immediately shift all gears and then remake the original Assassin's Creed game,
Oh my
which is
god.
apparently not in development right now. And they also will
See, there was rumors by by other YouTubers and ones that they heard rumors that apparently that the original Assassin's Creed was getting made again. And if that's the case, I'm worried about that because I'll play the original one. I'll get it on Xbox, PS3, whatever before I get a remake and they screw that up. No, and I think they're gonna bring up the other games too that I love so much with SEO.
it and just remake the entire Ezio trilogy
See?
as well in
Nah.
order to just
Nah.
garner goodwill
Nah,
and get the
nah,
support from the
nah,
players again.
nah,
These
nah.
sources
It's
also
perfectly
believe that
fine the way it
Hexe will
is,
likely never see
Ubisoft.
the light of day, but if it does, they will be actually shocked if it's not canceled or at the very least reduced dramatically in scope. I'm also told that many game studios are aware of Gamergate 2, and while they fear the implications of being caught in that war, that many studios have no desire or will to change their games to appeal to core audiences anymore. According to my sources, and this was one of the most damning allegations, so please listen carefully here, is that the game industry across plenty of studios will start to market their games as being devoid of identity politics and pandering almost completely. However, the actual content within these games in the future will not be altered or lessened in terms of identity political content, despite this tonal change in marketing. Simply put, many studios and publishers are still all in on DEI and wokeness in the future. Like, they are not changing that. And they still want you to consume this content, whether you want to or not. But they will now sell you the games by marketing them to you to trick you into thinking that they're not woke, basically. And then you will buy it, and then sometime into these future experiences, all the wokeness, I guess, will reveal itself, and then you will be probably too far into these games in order to refund them, and then these studios and publishers will then make their money. I asked my sources if they were sure of this. They said that they were, and that this is damning. So it looks like we're about to be getting some 4D chess moves from the industry soon, so expect a lot of deceiving marketing tactics that will be tricking you into buying games that you wouldn't
This is
normally buy
ridiculous.
yourself. So if we didn't stay vigilant enough before, we definitely have to in the future, it seems. I was also told that Ubisoft internally wants to make games that will, as I wrote in my big info doc here that I'm referencing from, they want female characters to dominate the world and the games industry. Like, they want every game that they make to feature female protagonists in leading roles and lots of diversity and little to no white men at all within lead roles anymore. They hoped that, according to my sources, that if they did this, that the game industry would all follow in suit. And this is basically being done because they want to erase masculinity from gaming altogether. I wish I was kidding, but hey, this is what my sources were telling me. So take that as you will, fellas. I was also told that the project that ruined Ubisoft was not actually Outlaws or Shadows. It was actually Skull and Bones. My sources told me they have seen multiple different versions of the game that were each completely different over the years. They said that they were told that the budget that was spent on Skull and Bones, it ranged somewhere from $650 to $850 million
Oh
over
my
10
gosh,
years.
dude.
And that Skull and Bones failed so badly for Ubisoft, it was the actual reason why they're dying the way that they are right now. It's not actually Outlaws and Shadows, if you can believe it. So they sunk a legendary amount of resources into that game, and it clearly did not work out for them at all. They actually believed that Outlaws and Shadows would be the games to pull them out of financial ruin after what happened with Skull and Bones. So in terms of Star Wars Outlaws, and this is crazy, I was told that Ubisoft was devastated internally by the sales in response to Outlaws, and that they actually thought that they would make, and no, I am not kidding, they thought Outlaws would do, as my sources tell me, Red Dead Redemption 2 levels of profit. The game was actually internally being called during development as Red Dead Star Wars. They thought they had a mega multiple franchise spin-off series in the works that would change the industry for the better in their opinion. I was also told at one time that the original pitch for Outlaws was actually a Mandalorian game. So, Massive is the studio that made Outlaws. They also made the Division games too. Apparently, the original vision for Outlaws was the Division, but instead of agents, each player was their own Mandalorian instead. And there would be multiple Mandalorian families.
Dude, why can't we do that?
Swear your allegiance to whoever you wanted
Why
to.
couldn't we do
And
that?
the idea was to have this multiple world spanning galaxy, always online action RPG adventure game where you could tackle bounties and quests with your friends or by yourself as your own fully customizable Mandalorian. You could find new pieces of gear, like in the Division, and then swap out your guns for different stats and, make your own builds.
Dude.
And there would be endgame content where you and your friends could jetpack around and fight in third-person cover-based shooting like Division, but obviously it's Star Wars. This sounded amazing to me. I don't know why they didn't do it, but
why?
It was too ambitious, I guess. And eventually,
it could have been done.
Would then shelve the idea.
It could have been done. If they would have cared, it could have been done. But they didn't because they wanted to go with something else. They treated the model that plays in Outlaws like crap. It looks nothing like her. There's times where the character don't look bad, and there's times that she looks absolutely just rugged, man. And I don't understand this. We could have gotten to play our own Mandalorian. We could play male or female and call her to clan, to taking on different bounties, to handling maybe a civil war against the Mandalorians. Why couldn't they do this? They had the fucking sources.
Instead, went all in on criminal empire stuff, and then they reduced their vision of the game into a solo single-player game that you know now. Also, from its inception, Outlaws was always intended to have a female main character too. Originally, as I was told, Kay Vest was actually an Indian woman, but they eventually brought on Humberly Gonzalez to play the character.
Yeah, and they screwed her over.
Didn't want Kay Vest to be fully Latina either. So they ended up with this weird mix of a character that they wanted to pass as vaguely every ethnicity possible.
That's so
that
stupid.
Was actually intended by design. It was referred to, as my source said, as an omni-racial main character. So if you're wondering why Kay Vest doesn't look fully white, Latino, Asian, Black, whatever, now you know. They literally made the most ethnically ambiguous main character they could. Apparently Massive was chosen for Outlaws by Ubisoft because the Division game sold well, and they wanted to make Massive their new premier studio, so to speak. But like I said, originally, they wanted all of their games to star women of color or diversity, whatever, with little to no white men at all. This is why Shadows has Noway and no male option, and black characters, even male ones, are considered on par with importance to Ubisoft in terms of female representation or diversity. Black men are seen as a priority to push in franchises over white men too, according to what I've been told. So if you're wondering why everything they've made recently is so diverse and checks all the boxes, you're not being crazy, it's all being done by design. Also, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora was a massive loss for Ubisoft as well, but they saw the game more as a beta test for the Snowdrop engine, and for Massive to familiarize themselves with open world sandbox style games. And they were hoping that while Avatar failed, that they could use their newfound expertise and experience to turn their next game, which was Outlaws, into Ubisoft's Red Dead Redemption-like experience, which is still insane, but that's what they thought.
That's hilarious.
They actually thought that Outlaws was as good as Red Dead internally. This is what I was told, man, but yeah, that is... Oh god, that is crazy. Some more random things I was told was that Far Cry 6 broke even. It did make some profit, but it actually didn't perform the way that Ubisoft intended it to. And that their next games that are coming out, which I'm not allowed to say because my sources told me to not say them, they said the future games that Ubisoft has for 2025 and 26, assuming that, they make it that far, are even less impressive than Outlaws or Shadows, and based on what they were telling me about them, I believe them. There is a lot of slop coming in the future from Ubisoft if they make it to those release dates. They also had some information on Ghost of Yotei, and they'll be giving me more in the future once they find more out. But apparently, Ghost of Yotei blindsided many people that were working at Sony,
a lot of people did,
who were not made aware of what Sucker Punch was making. And that people in the mid-levels at Sony were actually confused when Yotei was announced because they were under the impression that Jin Sakai would be getting a sequel, and they are not happy at all when it comes to the response of that game either internally at Sony right now. Like I said, I should hopefully...
Yeah, no one at Sony even knew.
But finally, my source told me that Ubisoft has a massive labor problem right now. and that the actual workforce at their studios that they own are largely incompetent and full of diversity hires and women, which were hired in order to check boxes. Because many of these hires, according to
I wonder why you hired to check off these boxes and you lose money. What's more important, money or checking off boxes? Apparently checking off boxes, because you don't want money. That's how people are losing their jobs. That's how come your games are dying. That's how come your company's dying. But Ubisoft, good on you.
the sources, were brought in to diversify the development teams. The actual talent level over at Ubisoft is apparently far lower than it was even 10 years ago.
That was sarcasm, by the way, guys.
Key talent has already left the company completely, and this has led to huge internal problems with dev teams and what they're making right now. There's apparently way too many junior level people and not enough seniors to teach them how to properly do things. And what ends up happening is that Ubisoft tends to outsource a lot of their development to other countries and their dev teams to help them, because the actual teams that Ubisoft has right now are really bad at their jobs. Apparently, this is what I'm told. My sources also told me that many of the things people like Grum say, or the things that I assume when I make my videos, are actually not bleak enough. And that the game industry in general is, as they said to me, on fire in every conceivable way, and things are so much worse internally than we even know right now. These sources also told me that the people they know from various studios, ranging from all the usual AAA studios that you know of, that there is a massive, and I can't stress this enough, but a massive problem with witch hunting and identity politics in gaming. And that it's to the point where nobody can question anything, and there's a lot of what's being called these days in the news as toxic positivity, and this is absolutely 100% the case. If you're accused of not supporting the current narrative, you are being essentially torn apart as if you're living in a cult pretty much in these studios now. And that this toxic positivity has been getting referenced all over online, and it's literally killing games before they even come out now. If you're wondering why every game from Western studios seems to be pandering or putting women in them like crazy and so on, I'm told you're not crazy at all, actually. In fact, you're just recognizing patterns that have been going on for a very long time at this point. My sources also told me that people within Western studios will oust you if you go against the narrative even remotely, and that this witch hunting is being used in order to usurp senior level talent so that new hires with little experience can actually crawl into these way more lucrative and powerful positions that they have no business being in the first place. And this has now led to more people like them who think the same way as them getting hired, and that this stagnation of talent and creativity is permeating all throughout a large amount of Western studios right now. So if you think the industry is cooked now, it's in fact far more worse apparently than you could even hope to imagine. But this is what I got for you so far. To reiterate, Yasuke was implemented solely due to identity politics. Black Lives Matter movements were an inspiration apparently for the character being included in the first place. He was not there originally. There was actually a fully completed Japanese male main character model somewhere at Ubisoft right now that they're not using. Ubisoft wants all their games to feature female protagonists, and they want the industry to completely reject white men in every single way. There's witch hunting across the entire industry. Outlaws was believed to be Ubisoft's Red Dead Redemption franchise in terms of quality and sales, and they were so deluded they actually thought it was going to be that. There's thousands of incompetent people in positions just wasting salaries and ruining your favorite games on purpose. Disingenuous marketing tactics will be implemented in the future to ensure you buy their games, but the actual content of said games will not be changing in any way. They are basically trying to own the chuds, as they would call it, and the Western industry, for the most part, are very, very, very identity politically driven right now.
Okay, guys, there's another video that I'm going to be watching here in a second, and it's going to be about the same one.
Hey everyone, it's...
But before I start this video on that last one, I already know about the rumors about the one from Ghost of Yotei, the actress, being an activist, which that worries me because I'm hoping that is not into the game at all. With all that being said, Ubisoft don't care. When they could be, their whole buildings could be on fire, and they're like, oh, we're okay, we're okay, we're okay. You know, and them doing this is just fuck. I don't even got the words other than messed up, dude. Like, it's beyond effed up. It's beyond messed up. They are delusional, senile morons. But got another video. I might as well just do this one as well for what this same gentleman's saying about more on everything else. So let's check this out.
Demion, and since my last video about Assassin's Creed Shadows, I've been given some more information on the original game's plot, as well as some other things. I also got some news I heard from sources about the whole Ghost of Tsushima and Yotei situation as well, and I think a lot more people need to know about this too. Firstly, let me start with what I was told recently. I was contacted by someone who worked on the original version of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and they laid out to me what the story was before it was eventually scrapped by Ubisoft for the Yasuke story. Originally, the plot of Shadows was supposed to surround a piece of Eden like other games called the Sword of Eden. It was an Isu artifact like the apple or the staff in Odyssey, but this sword would corrupt its wielders with power and then give them dominion over others. The hero of the original story was named Taka Yamauchi, who was a Shinto monk. Taka was decided to be a follower of Shintoism because it was a unique religion within Japan at the time, which would give Taka an interesting viewpoint of the world around him. This was chosen because the writers on Shadows wanted to give the audience a glimpse into a world that was foreign to many, and it was juxtaposed against the idea that this Shinto monk wanted nothing to do with conflict or the wars that were being engulfed by nobles. So pretty much, the hero was a badass nice guy who wanted to garden all day and just meditate. But of course, like any good badass would, the danger finds them eventually. Apparently the story would have switched into high gear when Oda Nobunaga was killed. In case you don't know, in real life events, Oda Nobunaga was a famous lord that was murdered by his own trusted general named Akechi Mitsuhide. In the new version of Shadows, Yasuke was a slave that is bought by Oda from the Jesuits when they come to Japan. And the very little details of the real life aspects of Yasuke that we do know, at least we do know that he did carry Oda's tools around and he would dance like a fool in front of his guests because Yasuke's skin was black and he was a very large man. Was Oda Nobunaga racist towards Yasuke in this sense? Absolutely. But I mean, it was a different time, of course, where a black man would stand out like a sore thumb amidst the rest of the Japanese populace. Anyway, like I was
Exactly.
saying, Taka Yamauchi, our hero, would be in a nearby temple when the fall of Oda Nobunaga happens. A fugitive would then come to Taka's temple from that said battle and would reveal himself to be Hattori Hanzo, who, if you don't know, he was one of the legendary ninjas of that same time period in real life. He was an actual person that was instrumental to the legend that we know today of Japanese shinobi. Hattori Hanzo would be wounded upon meeting Taka and would reveal that he had but one possession in his care, which would be revealed as the Sword of Eden taken from the hands of Oda Nobunaga after his death by Akechi Mitsuhide and his band of murderous power-hungry samurai brethren. Akechi Mitsuhide would announce that Hattori Hanzo was a traitor for stealing the sword, pinning the whole murder of Oda Nobunaga on him and using the confusion of the chaos of his lord's death to make it seem like Akechi was not the one who landed the killing blow. So, the entirety of Japan was out looking for this shinobi man who, unbeknownst to Taka, was carrying the Sword of Eden that could change the fate of Japan depending on who wielded it. I like the idea of the story so far. Sure, the sword is fantastical, but all Assassin's Creed had this concept, so it fits right in. And it uses the real-life individuals of that time to make a compelling narrative that I would actually want to explore. But there's more, so let's keep going. Taka would agree to treat Hanzo's wounds and would shelter his presence from Akechi and his samurai. Within this newfound trust, Hanzo would reveal to Taka that he belonged to a mysterious clan unbeknownst to the outside world of Iga shinobis that were working to save Japan from the clutches of Akechi Mitsuhide and his corrupt samurai. These Iga shinobis would be revealed as the Japanese branch of the Hidden Ones. And this is how Taka would get introduced to the creed of the assassins. Akechi Mitsuhide and his men would also visit Taka's temple looking for information on whether he saw a wounded man carrying an item on him. But Taka would skillfully dissuade Akechi and his men and then throw them off of Hanzo's trail. I don't know if Hanzo would die or not in this story, but apparently one of the big branching narratives was going to be Taka going against Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who in real life was a peasant-born man who would eventually rise to become the regent of Japan and was considered the second great unifier of the country. He was also considered one of the most influential and powerful men in Japanese history, and was directly tied to Oda Nobunaga during his reign before Akechi Mitsuhide murdered him in revenge. At some point in the story, as I was told, this Toyotomi Hideyoshi would come into possession of the Sword of Eden himself, and he would then use it to sway the people of Japan to his side, and Taka, now a part of the Iga Shinobi's Hidden Ones, would be waging a secret war against Toyotomi and Akechi in order to secure the sword and ensure Japan was freed of this Templar samurai rule. Apparently, Toyotomi would refer to himself as the Demon King of the Six Heavens, and was clearly becoming corrupted by the Isu technology within the Sword of Eden that was warping his mind, and would likely turn him into an untrustworthy madman who would think that everyone was out to get him. According to my sources, the story would eventually end with Taka defeating Akechi Mitsuhide for killing Oda Nobunaga, and eventually, within the shadows, taking down Toyotomi Hideyoshi and claiming the Sword of Eden for the Iga Shinobi Hidden Ones. The story would then end with Tokugawa Ieyasu, who was the first shogun of the Tokugawa shogunate, ushering in a new era for Japan that would span from 1603 all the way to 1868 when the Meiji Restoration would happen. Like Toyotomi, Tokugawa was also considered one of the great unifiers of Japan. But from what I understand from this story, Tokugawa Ieyasu would not use the Sword of Eden to control the people of Japan. Instead, he would use charity and community to usher in a new era for Japan. The story would have ended with the Shinto monk named Taka Yamauchi fading into the shadows with the Hidden Ones to conceal the Sword of Eden so that it may never be used by another madman ever again. It was a classic story in terms of Assassin's Creed, I know, but I think it fits perfectly into what these games were about in my opinion. According to my sources, which I asked if I was able to tell their experiences while working with Ubisoft, they said it was fine, so I'll tell you that now. They said they were very quickly flown out to Japan after being hired by Ubisoft for this very ambitious project. They also took many notes while researching the historical period, and they found navigating a foreign city to be very challenging to do at the time. On the weekends, they said that they were taken to various temples and shrines and were shown concepts like Shinto purification hand-cleaning rituals and shrines that existed between modern-day skyscrapers. They also told me they are still mad to this day that Ubisoft was willing to invest so much time and money into what they were calling a bad mobile game over their AAA Japanese Assassin's Creed game that they were also co-developing. I assume they meant the upcoming Assassin's Creed Jade game, which if you don't know is a Chinese-led Assassin's Creed game that is made in tandem with Tencent. Apparently the story that was written by these original writers involving Taka Yamauchi, the Sword of Eden and all of that, was heavily scrutinized by the Shadow's head development team. According to my sources, most of what was made or written by the original Shadows team was largely abandoned by the now Shadows devs. This all happened between 2015 to 2016 according to them. So this game has been on in and off development for almost a decade at this point.
That's sad to
My
say,
source
man.
also
That you've
told
been
me
working
they
on a
did
game
hear
for
that the
almost
bulk
a
of the
decade
story
and it's still
direction was
shit.
changed during 2020, like I previously mentioned in my other video. And they do believe that the political climate of that time, including George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, did lead to Yasuke being inserted over Taka Yamauchi. So when my previous sources told me that they saw a fully created Japanese male protagonist, I can only assume that what they saw was indeed Taka Yamauchi as he was intended to be shown in the game. According to one of my sources, the reason why Taka's story was rejected was because the narrative designers at Ubisoft didn't want Shadows to be a piece of Eden of the Week story again like other games. As of now, though, I am not being told what the actual plot of Shadows is as of right now. But we do know that they gender-swapped Taka and combined his idea of his character with that of another legendary Iga shinobi. But instead of Hattori Hanzo, the shinobi chosen was Fujibayashi Nagato. Nagato was like Hanzo, one of the legendary real-life Iga shinobi. But of course, he was not chosen as the main character of Shadows, as I'm told, because he was a Japanese man. And what's very weird in Western studios is, largely speaking, Asian men are oftentimes treated with the same disdain as white male characters as well. So instead of Nagato being your Shadow's main character or Taka, this is why Naoe is your shinobi in Shadows officially. She's the daughter of Fujibayashi Nagato, that's canon by the way. In the reveal trailer Dev Diary, they reveal and confirm that the name Fujibayashi Nagato is the guy in the trailer and that Naoe is his daughter. So Ubisoft quite literally took the concept of the Iga Shinobis, which was spearheaded and led by legendary male ninjas, and went screw all of that. They don't matter anymore. Instead, here's Naoe because women are better apparently. As I said in my previous video, Ubisoft wanted women to rule the gaming industry both within dev teams and representation in media as well. I think a lot of this could have been avoided if they simply didn't have Yasuke, because two protagonists are not something we really want in Assassin's Creed games anyways, and they should have just made Naoe have a male variant, and then you can choose whichever you want, like in Valhalla. But what's done is done, I suppose, and now instead of a cool Sword of Eden story, you're going to be getting whatever it is that Ubisoft has cooked up this time. But like I said in my previous video, they have at least 7% of the pre-orders of Valhalla in the same time period. It's a big reason why they're bombing so hard right now. Besides the origins of Shadows being revealed to me, another source told me that Ubisoft is reeling in terms of development as well. And they currently have, as my source told me, an abnormal amount of female developers in their studios, which is, yes, being done on purpose. What I was also told about Ubisoft, which was very stupid, is that in terms of the actual senior development leads working at Ubisoft natively, most of their actual talent is from contract work. And an alarming amount of these actual competent developers who usually work on these projects just to ensure they, make it through the door, are actually middle-aged white men. These contractors, as I'm told, which have spoken to many of my sources about their experiences not only at Ubisoft but other dev studios, is that there's a devastating lack of competence and actual talent at a lot of these Western studios these days.
Could have told you
And
that.
essentially what is happening is these publishers will hire these senior devs that actually know what they're doing as contractors, so they don't have to display them amongst the other far less competent devs, which are mostly, as I'm being told, and don't shoot the messenger, alright? I'm just telling you what they're telling me. But these incompetent devs are mostly women and people who are diversity hires. So case in point, competent white male devs are contracted to work on these things, not necessarily in roles that allow them to, say, change the story or approve character designs or anything like that. Those decisions are almost exclusively decided by your typical woke Marxist left-leaning activists within these studios.
That pretty much tells me let the white men do the work while women and other ones of color basically get the credit. And that's what happened however many years ago. I know some dumbass is going to say that. Either way, it's wrong. Either way, it's wrong. You have people, what happened to your credibility and your experience rather than the gender or your color mattered? That shit don't matter. It matters on your integrity and your credibility and what you're able to do. Apparently that crap don't matter anymore. Guys, I wanted to be a game tester. I wanted to be a game designer. I wanted to do all that. At one point, I wanted to be a voice actor. I wanted to actor, all that stuff. I don't even want to do that anymore because of shit like this. Because of people ruining stuff like that for potential content creators like me. That's why, again, I'm a small YouTuber and I'm glad for it. I hope that my YouTube channel goes even better at one point. If it does, great. If not, that's fine too. Because I'm glad I don't have to someone tell me what I can and cannot do. I like it.
But since when it comes to actually making the moronic ideas a reality being harder than they expected, they then contract these older white guys who likely make way more money off these publishers this way to make their stupid woke decisions an actual reality. So you end up with games that suck and are made for no one, but at least they still function as video games. But this is largely only because these contractors are working on it. It's kind of messed up when I spoke to my sources about this, but this is apparently happening all over the industry right now. Studios are filled with people who have zero idea what they're actually doing. They're being hired based on identity or gender, yet when it comes to actually making things happen, well, it doesn't, according to my sources. In terms of what I heard about Ghost of Tsushima and Yotei, it's actually far more bleak than I could imagine. Like Ubisoft and others, Sucker Punch also makes games in a way that my sources told me are called made by committee. Basically, these games are decided then when the actual ideas come to what gets made and put into the game, it's almost like you have the heads of each department, if you will, at a round table, but not really, of course. They could be doing it all over Zoom or something, but same idea. Anyway, they'll propose an idea like they'll say we want a male main character or a female one, and then the committee of devs will then say yes or no, and then they vote on what gets made. And this process is used for many, many different aspects of every single game being made right now. Like, we want more diversity, please vote yes or no. We want the story to push anti-white supremacy, say yes or no, etc. This way of making games, as I'm told, it leads to why a lot of activism nonsense makes its way into games these days. Because a bunch of activists could and likely will sit on their committee board and just through voting will overwhelm the minority of votes to ensure that everything meets their demands. So when it comes to Naoe and Yasuke being a thing in shadows, you can almost definitely believe that it was likely voted on and decided by a committee as well. The same thing is happening at Sucker Punch right now. I was also told, and take this with a big fat grain of skepticism again, but apparently most of the competent devs have indeed left Sucker Punch quietly already.
Oh,
I
jeez.
cannot confirm this, but from what I'm being told, the key talent behind Tsushima have left amidst the second game in the series being made.
Damn, dude.
I was told that originally Yotei was not the original game idea at all. It was actually indeed Ghost of Tsushima 2 starring Jin Sakai. But sometime during development, a lot like Shadows, the game was halted and then completely changed in vision. This Atsu character we see was not originally decided to be the main character of this game. And apparently, according to my sources, Yotei's world and design are largely based on the assets that were being used while making Tsushima 2. Apparently, work began on Tsushima 2 around 2 months after the official sales data came through on the first game's success. A skeleton crew was left behind to work on the Legends multiplayer, and the same team made the Iki Island DLC expansion as well. From what I'm told in terms of Yotei, the team that made the Iki Island DLC are the primary devs on this game. And the actual Sucker Punch that's left is allegedly mostly working on something else. Take this with your grains of salt or whatever people say, but yeah, Yotei was not the original vision, and key talent has left Sucker Punch, just like it happened with Rocksteady when Suicide Squad was being made as well. I was also told do not expect Yotei in 2025 at all. Apparently the game's nowhere near being done, but it's a very slim chance at best that this game actually releases in 2025. It could very easily fall into 2026, but if you're getting your hopes up for it coming out next year, probably don't do that. Every source that I spoke to say that they fully expect a delay at some point to be announced. Originally, apparently, they wanted this Tsushima sequel to drop close to John Wick's director's vision of the movie to capitalize on sales. But these changes from Tsushima 2 to Yotei happened, apparently, within the last year. So the entire vision of the project has been changed. The era of placing the game 300 years into the future from Tsushima 1's story was decided because it would be more believable in Sucker Punch's internal talks for the game to star a woman at that point instead. Especially considering Atsu would then have access to things like firearms to fight back against enemies as well. As I was also told further, Ghost of Tsushima 2 was described as Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but way better in every single way. The game was supposed to move Jin Sakai further into the Japanese mainland to fight the Mongols. As I was told, Tsushima 2 was meant to be about Jin creating his own Brotherhood of Ghosts, a lot like Ezio does with the Brotherhood of Assassins.
Are you shitting me, dude? Really?
The idea was that Jin knew he couldn't face the Mongols alone, and therefore would train eager and talented young Japanese into capable warriors that could help him strike in multiple areas at once. Which would then give credence to the idea that the ghost, as in Jin, and the legend were indeed everywhere at once around Japan, which would obviously scare the Mongols and then make the urban legend even more terrifying to them. There was meant to be huge cinematic battles where Jin and his ghosts would ride and face off against the Mongols as well. Yotei is also allegedly being developed as a cross-gen game for PS5 and PS4, because Sucker Punch and Sony are worried that the game won't sell as well if it isn't available to a larger install base. So for you out there who saw the Yotei trailer and went, this looks exactly the same graphically as Tsushima, which wasn't an ugly game, mind you, it's beautiful even to this day, well, now you have your answer. Although, as I'm told, Yotei may be smaller than the original Tsushima because of the development problems behind the scene, and the fact that they sidelined Jin Sakai for this new Atsu hero instead. This led to a lot of asset flips and the story changing, but the core idea of Jin being hunted by Ronin was kept, but of course, he was replaced by Atsu instead. I was also told by another source that the ending of Yotei will piss people off, however, they couldn't reveal more of that yet. I wasn't given specifics on what this could mean, however, I don't know how Yotei's ending could piss people off. The only conclusion I could make in my own head about this was that Yotei's story will feature moments where you do play as Jin, although in flashbacks. And I would wager if they mean the ending will piss people off, I would assume, and I could be wrong, but let me cook here, but imagine throughout the story you play some parts as Jin whenever his legend is being brought up by the people of Yotei. This way Sucker Punch can reuse whatever missions they cancelled as content within the game to satiate the Tsushima fans. If I had to guess why the ending would piss anyone off, my shot in the dark here is that we learn that Jin Sakai is not successful in the battle against the Mongols, and that he likely dies during some pivotal moment during the invasion in order to either save someone or his clan by giving his life, and would likely end his legend within Yotei while still being able to play as Atsu, because you would learn that Jin Sakai ultimately failed, but his legacy would live on with his remaining ghosts that he fostered, and they would in turn eventually win the war and stave off the Mongol invasion. That's the only way I could imagine the ending pissing people off, but I assume that they will confirm that Jin died before he could actualize his efforts, which would then close the book on his story so that fans don't demand more content from him. And this then allows Atsu to live on, and then it answers that lingering question. But like I said, Asian men are now being viewed as disposable when it comes to representation by the West, the same way that white men are too, so none of this would really surprise me really. I was also told that people within Sony are leaking information about all sorts of games and developments to people on the outside, hence how I heard about this from my sources. Apparently, a lot of questions are being asked internally about things like Ghost of Yotei especially. Many are feeling blindsided by its announcement, and like I said, since allegedly Yotei was changed from Tsushima 2 to what it is now within the last year, a lot of the PR people and marketing developments were not made aware in time about Ghost 2 suddenly pivoting to a new main character with a sudden 300 year time jump or anything like that. So a lot of people are confused and scrambling for answers right now, wondering why they were left in the dark about this. Maybe because Sucker Punch knew if others were made aware, they would push against it, but like I was told, many of the key talent has either left Sucker Punch entirely, or they are not actively working on Yotei. As I was also told, if Yotei's reception does not improve, this could scale the game back in terms of scope and resources. If Sony starts to notice the public opinion on this game is not changing for the better, they'll opt for a smaller overall content package. So I wouldn't be surprised if Yotei releases at $60 Canadian or $50 American, instead of the usual premium price point of $70 American as it is right now, or $80-$90 for Canadians.
I'm gonna stop that, guys, because this is just a lot of information to digest. Between Assassin's Creed Shadows would have had a much better story if they would have went with that. Same thing with Ghost of Tsushima 2. If they would have went with that, that would have been an amazing story. I don't know what the hell is wrong with these game developers, dude. These suits, these idiots, they don't know nothing about gaming. They don't know nothing about the fandom. They don't know nothing on what people want, because, oh, let's go on what may sell rather than we know what will sell. And again, I understand it's business at the end of the day, but a lot of these businesses don't know what they're doing, and they got their heads so far up their own asses, they're not going to realize it. And I already said this before, Ubisoft is going to burn at some point, because I don't play none of the Tom Clancy games really anymore. They got boring. Far Cry got boring as well. Assassin's Creed's is getting more shitty. I don't know. I've lost so much faith in Ubisoft. And I don't know. I mean, I got Star Wars Outlaws. I'm playing that. Still give it a chance. Haven't played it much. I don't know about Assassin's Creed Shadows. The more and more I hear about it, I don't want to spend my money on that. I don't know. I really don't know right now. But there you are, go. It's out there. I reacted to that. Reacted to another one. There's a lot of stuff I gotta go into. Didn't think this video would be that long. Did technically 2 videos in one. It's a lot of information. Let me know what you guys think about this. This is freaking crazy. And I'll see you as always on the next one.